We're back, and we've been talking about the government shutdown. And joining us on the show is Dr. Bill Cassidy, the senator from the state of Louisiana. Welcome to the show, Dr. Cassidy.
Hey, Sheriff. Thank you for having me, buddy.
Thank you. So what actually has been agreed to? We're encouraged to hear that, government is back open and we're moving forward. And so what was the deal?
The deal is that on February the 8th, if we've not yet addressed the issue of border security and the DACA kids, that McConnell will make it the order of the day and we'll begin to debate it. That's presuming the government's open. If Senate Democrats choose to shut down the government again, then there will be no debate. But if they say, okay, we're going to keep the government open, we'll cooperate with the Republicans to keep it going, then there will be a debate. In the meantime, for the next 3 weeks, figure out. And now we're going to reauthorize the insurance program for 6 years. I had no clue why Senate didn't allow that. Short-term reauthorization of the national flood insurance program, incredibly important to us in Louisiana, as well as funding the military. So I think it's kind of where we should be.
Yeah, I mean, the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, obviously is something of concern for us as we heading into the summer months yet again. So if this continuing resolution thing just keeps to continue on and on and on and not some resolution, that is a problem for us, for sure.
Yeah, we need some reforms. I have a bill out there with Kirsten Gillibrand, who is the senator from New York, a good bipartisan bill. We think it's got great reforms. We listened to the people in Louisiana, took their ideas, put it in the legislation. So we don't want this short-term kind of continuation to be the end of it, because we think our reforms are good to make the program more accountable, sustainable, and affordable. But in the meantime, at least we still have the coverage.
Senator, there's a lot of folks calling in here and texting in here that DACA ought to be an up or down issue only. What is y'all's sentiments on that?
I think if you first, you got to separate DACA from. Let me start over, Newell. Most Americans did not think you should be shutting down the government over the issue of DACA.
I agree with that.
And certainly not denying children coverage through the Children's Health Insurance Program. Now, as regards what we do with it other than that, up and down vote. Do we get border security? Well, that's probably going to be connected to it, because the president is willing to give on DACA if he gets border security. And so the way it works, of course, is that you present a compromise. And if the president is okay with the compromise and he says he'll sign the legislation, then it becomes law. We can have an up or down vote on DACA, but if the president won't sign it...
Well, when I say up or down, with the provisions, of the compromise, just that in and of itself, whatever the compromise issues are in DACA and deal with it once and for all.
Yeah, I think, reasonably speaking, it's going to be hard to have a long-term budget deal, because Democrats will continue to hold, Senate Democrats will continue to hold things hostage to get this. And DACA is important, very important. It's not due until March the 5th. That's when the deadline is. So our objection has been, why are you letting the Children's Health Insurance Program and the National Flood Insurance Program run out now, when we have until March the 5th to take care of DACA? But if we do it as a standalone along with the other compromises, I'm okay with that.
Senator, I was listening to Joe Manchin and Susan Collins, and they were talking about, some of the difficulties in the respective leaderships of both the Republican side of the aisle as well as the Democratic side of the aisle, that there may not be enough space for other people to articulate reasonable positions to try and get on the table to try and craft this compromise. Where do you fall on that issue?
Well, I'm not sure. What McConnell has said is that if we bring this up to the floor, then that basically anybody can offer whatever amendment they want. So if Manchin and Collins are saying, well, we're not sure we're going to be heard, I think the outlines of what McConnell is saying is that, yes, you will be heard. If you have an idea, an amendment, a bill, it will be voted on.
Well, I think it was a little more fundamental than that, leading up to Friday, where government shut down, that there really wasn't room in the room for those that were trying to create this bipartisan environment to try and craft some resolution so that we wouldn't have to have the government shut down.
I think when Senate Democrats decided that they were going to hold the government hostage to the DACA situation, even though DACA was not due until March the 5th, I'm not sure there was other room. I mean, I object to that personally. You shouldn't hold children's health insurance program hostage to something which is not due until March the 5th. And frankly, it doesn't pertain to, the children's health insurance program is a lot more children than the DACA kids. So I'm not sure I agree with those senators. I think the way that was set up by Schumer just was going to be unacceptable to too many people.
Right. And our opinion poll here is whom do you blame for the government shutdown? 58% of our respondents say the Democrats, 29% say both parties, and 14% say Republicans. So that's kind of the mood, at least in our market down here, that they're feeling it. The Democrats were putting unreasonable constraints and conditions on this and moving forward, and that shutting down government was just too important to have to be dragged down with these other issues.
And particularly when you're talking about a 6-year reauthorization of the children's health insurance program, which I was hearing from Louisiana that our state had run out of money and was beginning to wind it down, as well as things like the National Flood Insurance Program. There was a lack of a sense of proportion. Maybe you got to shut down the government, but it should be something proportional. And I don't think Americans thought it was proportional. I certainly didn't think it was.
And most importantly, the military as well. I mean, I know a lot of the areas of the military were not affected, but a lot were.
Well, one thing that was affected was survivor benefits. Now, we all have sympathy for the children and the spouses left when somebody in our military dies in the line of duty, and you don't want those survivor benefits to be held back. It's a very small thing. Fortunately, there's not that many of them, but it's a powerful thing.
I think as people begin to realize more and more the importance of this, and, we got a lot of questions coming in on all of the hours of talk radio that we do. What does it actually mean? And the more that they realize what it means, I think the more concerned they got, and they failed to recognize or realize the interaction between them and the federal government day in and day out, and what the downstream implications are.
Well, in fairness, I think the Trump administration was committed to making things work as well as they could. One example, the EPA, they just told everybody to come in, and effectively saying everybody's essential. We expect you to be here. We'll pay you, but we expect you to be here. And so credit to the Trump administration, whereas the Obama administration put ropes around open-air parks and kept World War II veterans from going into open-air parks. That was uncalled for. The Trump administration was telling people to show up for work.
Yeah, and I think this, do you think that we're going to hear Schumer talk on the floor today, it was almost like he found this magic wand, and now we've created this environment of bipartisanship, and somehow or another there was some kind of intervention that's going to move us beyond this. I listened to it and I was almost chuckling, with every word that he said. I don't get it.
Well, I think, Schumer, as they say, got over his skis. And so I think he must have thought he was going to get a lot of support. But most folks, including in states represented by Democrats, thought that Senate Democrats, again, had lost sense of proportion. So I kind of got a little bit of a sense of sour grapes. I know the other Democratic senators didn't like where they were. How could you be? I mean, you're shutting down CHIP. How can you be for that?
Right.
So I think he's been under a lot of pressure and tried to put the best face for his base upon his comments.
A lot of people don't realize the implications of CHIP. I know you do, but, when you look at just our special needs community of kids around this country that are serviced by that program, it'll bring tears to your eyes if you think about those implications.
Yeah, so Children's Health Insurance Program, bipartisan program, which provides health insurance coverage for lower-income children, and makes a difference and is improved those kids. It's a block grant, similar to the Cassidy bill I'd put up. It's a very successful program where the state gets a block grant and the state figures out how to best serve the people in their state. Indeed, our Graham Cassidy was patterned after the Children's Health Insurance Program, which has been so successful. So again, that was being reauthorized for 6 years, and that was not going to be popular.
Well, Senator Cassidy, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insight, and we will keep our fingers crossed that things will go well between now and February the 8th.
Thanks, Newell.
Okay, all righty.